Hi, my name's Tom Downey, and I've got a top 10 list here of tips for beginner guitar players, people who are just starting out, that I think will make it easier to get started and to be successful. First thing I'd like to talk about is your guitar. Picking the right guitar is really important. You want to get something that inspires you, that you really like, whether it's an electric or acoustic. If you're more inclined to be an acoustic player, you probably should start with an acoustic. I will say though that the electric, I think, when you first start, is an easier instrument to learn. It's easier on your fingers. The strings are easier to push down. So if you don't care one way or another, you might want to go with the electric. The other thing I would say is when you first start, you're learning basic chords and kind of the cowboy chords in the first position up here. You got D and you got C and you've got E minor, A minor, C major 7. There's a whole bunch of little chords that are right here in this first position that you learn. That's the very first thing you do, and working on your right hand. The problem is, especially if you're smaller, your arm is way up here and your leverage is not very good, especially for learning a lot of these difficult chords. You're better off, I think, doing the same chord shapes, using a capo at, say, the 3rd fret. Now your arm, instead up here, is down here. We have better leverage. And the other thing is the strings are lower against the fretboard because the capo has pushed them down. So you have kind of like a 0 fret on some guitars. So where it just makes it easier to push the strings down. I would go with some light strings. 9s would be ideal. 9s or even 8s. Because when you first start out, you're just learning these basic chords, and it's much easier if your fingers are not struggling to push down really big strings. The other thing I would suggest you do would be, when you practice one day, and then just like if you're lifting weights or doing anything, if you rest a day or two after your first start, let your fingers and your calluses build up on your hands. Your fingers won't be sore then, maybe a couple days when you first start out. Then gradually you can build up where you could play every day. But that'd be one thing. You're creating strength in muscles you don't normally use. That's especially true when you're learning bar chords. That's down the line a little bit. But by using a capo, using light strings, it'll make it easier for you to learn your chord changes. Okay. The other thing I would say is to just be patient with yourself. In this day and age, everyone, adults and young people, instant gratification. I know a guy that started playing guitar and literally thought within a couple of weeks he'd be playing Stairway to Heaven or whatever his favorite song is, and it just doesn't work that way. But you have to learn to be patient with yourself and baby steps. Get small. You get success stories on just small little things, and eventually you'll get there. But you need to be patient with yourself. You kind of have to be fearless, and you need to kind of stay away from people that are negative. Oh, you'll never be able to play that, or no, I couldn't do it. You need to keep yourself away from those kind of people. And a good way to do that is to also, when you practice, try to practice with headphones. When you're first starting, you can plug an electric guitar or an acoustic electric with headphones. You're not disturbing other people. Find a quiet place in the house away from other people, and because it's going to take a lot of repetition, and that repetition is hard on other people that are just trying to watch the news or do something else. But stay away from other people and use headphones. The other thing I was going to say, whether you get an acoustic or an electric, if you do get an acoustic, buy an acoustic electric. They don't cost any more really, and you have the ability to plug them in with headphones and get yourself a small amp like one of these down the road where they've got a spot for headphones, and now you can. And there's also all kinds of effects on here that even reverb and delay that make any kind of chord you play sound better. So that's down there. First you get the guitar, and then get a little amp, and that'll make practicing even more fun. So there's a couple things. I would say the other thing would be to try to play, learn to play, start playing songs early. Whatever songs inspire you, you may not be able to play, you may only play parts of the song, but get started playing songs. That will motivate you much more than learning just chords. So that would be something I would start with too. The other thing, everybody's concentrated, Tab Benoit was talking about this, everybody's concentrated on the left hand and worried about their left hand, where the money hand is really the right hand. This is the one people will notice if you don't play in time, much more so than a bad note here or there because you didn't fret right. But they will instantly notice poor rhythm playing if you're not in the pocket. So really concentrate on your right hand too, strumming. And right away, I would start learning to finger pick too. If you need to, I think you really need to learn both. There's a way you can hide picks that I can go into, and so you've got a pick available right away there, and then you can finger pick, and then go right away to pick. That takes a little while to learn, but people sometimes put a pick here, or they put it in their mouth, or there's lots of different ways of doing it. But I like to leave it on my fingers. But learn right from the get-go. Start doing finger. Banjo players are great finger pickers, and the different banjo rolls and ways of playing with your fingers that banjo players use. Even though people make fun of banjo players, they shouldn't, because they've got some incredible right hand technique, and I think you can learn a lot from a good banjo player. One of my favorite guitar players of all time, Lindsey Buckingham, when he was young, he had a banjo first, started playing. Plus, there's a percussive aspect to it. So, don't neglect the banjo. It's a cool instrument. The other thing, I guess I would say, the last thing would be to practice with a drum, with a little drum pattern or a drum kit, or a lot of amps will have drum patterns on their amp, or even on your app, on your phone, there's different apps you can get for having a groove, something to work against. That is huge. That's what you're striving for, is learning to play with the beat, and it makes practicing a lot more fun. So those are, I think, about 10 things I've gone over that I think will help out a beginner. But main thing is just be patient with yourself. You will get there. It doesn't seem like you will get there, but you will. It's muscle memory and repetition on changing between chords, and by using your right hand as a learning picking patterns and strumming. So good luck to you, and thanks for listening.